Humanity had always been seen as something of a curiosity within the vast galactic union. While other species boasted of territorial expansion and violent conflicts, humans seemed to occupy a different space. They were calm, diplomatic, and far too focused on peaceful pursuits. Older civilizations of the galaxy found it almost amusing that this young species, who had risen from their isolated planet with grand ideas of unity and cooperation, contributed to the Union mainly through technological innovation, economic trade, and cultural exchange. It wasn't that humanity lacked a military. Every race knew they had won, but their forces were never paraded around. While other species showcased war fleets and heavily armed soldiers during Union summits, humanity sent negotiators, scientists, and diplomats. The common belief among galactic elites was simple. Humans were efficient, useful, but ultimately soft. Ambassador Relora of the Terran, a warrior race obsessed with strength, was particularly vocal about humanity's role. She often mocked them during council meetings. They are dreamers, idealists. Their history may be full of conflict, but they have forgotten the necessity of force. They are weak. Many species agreed. Humans were good for trade deals and neutral diplomacy, but when it came to real power, they had no place at the warriors' table. Races like the Tekri, the Ragnar, and the brutal Varen carried the burden of war and defense, while humans seemed content to leave such matters to others. Perhaps it is better this way, remarked General Korvek of the Varen, whose people were infamous for their ruthless methods in battle. Humans are not built for combat. Their society is too comfortable. They cannot summon the violence needed to dominate this galaxy. Behind closed doors, such discussions were even more blunt. Humans were tolerated, even admired at times for their cleverness and innovations, but never feared. Why should they be? They had made it clear they preferred diplomacy over bloodshed, innovation over conquest. Yet not everyone agreed with this consensus. A handful of scholars within the Union had studied Earth's past and knew humanity's true legacy. From tribal clashes to global wars, humans had lived with violence for millennia. They had fought, killed, and conquered with a brutality rivaling any hardened species in the galaxy. But now they were different. Or so most believed. Ambassador Relora laughed dismissively. Whatever their past, they have abandoned it. They think themselves above war, and that makes them weak. Still, some whispered a different theory. Humanity did not fear war. They feared what they might become if they embraced it again. Far from the council chambers, a new threat was rising. The Zorith Dominion, a race of conquerors known for their ferocity, had grown bolder, raiding minor species on the outer rim. The Union hesitated, unwilling to act decisively until the Zorith struck somewhere important. And then they did. Their target, a human colony on the edge of Union space. It was not the largest or most vital colony, but it was isolated, an easy prey. The Zorith attack was not a simple raid. It was a massacre. Entire communities were annihilated, men, women, and children slaughtered without mercy. The colony was erased, leaving nothing but ashes. When the images reached the Union Council, shock spread. This was no mere incursion. It was a declaration of war. The council gathered in emergency session, debating possible responses. But humanity needed no debate. Within hours of the news, Earth's reply was cold and absolute. "We will handle this ourselves," declared Ambassador Valen before the council. Gone was the warmth and politeness the galaxy had come to expect. There was no plea for help, no request for aid, only a promise. Humanity would deal with the threat alone. The other species were stunned. Humans had never spoken this way before. Always cooperative, always diplomatic, until now. Earth mobilized. Fleets once thought modest revealed their true scale. Colossal warships emerged from hidden bases. Entire battalions prepared for deployment. The galaxy watched in silence as humanity shifted from quiet diplomacy to cold, calculated preparation for war. And with that shift came a chilling realization. Humans had never been weak. They had simply chosen restraint. Now, provoked beyond measure, something ancient and terrifying had awakened within them. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy remembered what scholars had always warned. Humanity was not soft. They were not fragile. They were a species forged in fire, tempered by endless wars, and trained by history itself. They had chosen peace, but peace was never their true nature. And now, that choice had been taken from them. The Zorith had made a fatal mistake. They believed humanity's patience was weakness. But the galaxy was about to learn the truth. Humans were not peaceful because they lacked the power for war. They were peaceful because they chose to be. And now, that choice was gone. The galaxy had long mistaken Earth's contributions, diplomacy, science, and trade, as all humanity had to offer. They had never seen the other side, the one forged in millennia of brutal wars that had reshaped human civilization. "Activate the fleets," ordered General Alden, his voice steady. For centuries, Earth had guarded a secret. The ships seen patrolling Union space, the soldiers deployed on peacekeeping missions, those were only a fraction of humanity's true strength. Hidden deep within orbital shipyards and secret bases, the real fleets had waited. And now they were ready. Colossal warships surged into motion. These were no fragile frigates, but titanic vessels armed with devastating weapons, layered armor capable of withstanding the heaviest bombardment, and engines faster than anything else in the galaxy. Humanity had spent generations perfecting military technology, preparing for a day just like this. The Zorith, still celebrating their slaughter of a human colony, had no idea what was coming. Their forces were scattered, their arrogance blinding them to the possibility of retribution. From hyperspace, the human fleets emerged with terrifying precision. At their head stood Admiral Saran aboard his command ship, eyes fixed on the tactical display. Calm, cold, but burning with resolve. "They wanted a war," he said quietly. "We'll give them one." Without warning, the first salvo struck. Human weapons tore through Zorith defenses with ruthless efficiency. Planetary shields collapsed within minutes. Fortresses crumbled, cities were leveled. The aggressors who had always struck first now scrambled in panic, their fleets too scattered to mount a defense. On the ground, Zorith generals barked orders, but their words were drowned out by chaos. Humanity had arrived in overwhelming force, and there was no stopping it. For the first time in generations, the conquerors were the ones fleeing. Admiral Saran's expression never wavered as he watched the devastation unfold. "They thought they could make an example of us," he told his officers. "Now they'll learn what it means to provoke humanity." The fleets pressed on relentlessly, dismantling shipyards, command centers, and strongholds across the Dominion. Every corner of the Zorith Empire began to feel the weight of humanity's fury. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as reports spread. The Union Council, once dismissive of human strength, sat frozen with unease. This was not the humanity they thought they knew. This was something else, something terrifying. By the end of the first day, Zorith core worlds lay in ruins. Their fleets shattered, their leaders dead or in hiding. An empire that had once been feared across the stars was collapsing, and it had taken less than 24 hours. Back on Earth, General Alden stood in the war room, reading the incoming reports. The message was clear, and it echoed across the galaxy. Humanity would never again be underestimated. General Verrick, the architect of the initial massacre, now retreated to his flagship in disbelief. His forces, once trained as ruthless conquerors, were being torn apart. Every strategy he attempted had already been anticipated. Every stronghold he retreated to was destroyed within hours. Human soldiers moved across the battlefield like shadows. These were not the militia that had been slaughtered at the colony. They were elite warriors, long kept in reserve, waiting for this very moment. Now unleashed, they cut through Zorith defenses with cold precision. In occupied worlds, armored human troops marched through ruins, clearing resistance with methodical discipline. Sleek war machines advanced through shattered streets, their weapons striking with pinpoint accuracy. The Zorith defenders barely had time to react before they were annihilated. "Retreat!" shouted a commander, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Their forces were collapsing, not from sheer numbers, but from superior tactics and technology. For the first time, the predators of the galaxy were being hunted. In the Human Command Center, Colonel Wren stood before a vast holographic display, his expression unreadable as the battle unfolded. His troops executed the plan with surgical precision, exactly as they had been trained. The Zorith had never expected humanity to possess such advanced military capabilities. That was their fatal mistake, underestimating a species that had lived with war longer than they could comprehend. "They're breaking," Wren said calmly, watching the chaos from afar. The proud and arrogant Zorith had never faced an enemy who could adapt so quickly. Human soldiers moved like predators across the battlefield, striking down the stragglers with ruthless efficiency. Once feared across the galaxy, the Zorith now fled in terror. But it wasn't just their armies collapsing. Their leadership was in disarray. Communications sabotaged, supply lines severed, every attempt at regrouping met with overwhelming human firepower. They had begun this war with arrogance, believing humanity would be an easy target. Now they saw the truth. Humanity was not a peaceful, fragile race. Humanity was something far worse, an ancient war machine, dormant for too long, finally awakened. Beneath Earth's surface, in the war rooms, human leaders remained calm. Their strategy had always been clear. Humanity had never wanted this war, but once provoked, they had no intention of losing. They had prepared for centuries, knowing that someday the galaxy might push them too far. That day had come, and the Zorath had awakened a sleeping giant. Across the galaxy, news of humanity's sudden rise spread like wildfire. Civilizations that had once mocked the idea of humans as a military power now watched in stunned silence as human fleets dominated battlefield after battlefield. The Federation Council, still reeling from the speed of humanity's counterattack, gathered in emergency session. Ambassador Zura, who had once dismissed humanity as weak, sat in silence, her reptilian eyes narrowed as reports poured in. She, like so many others, had been terribly wrong. "What are they?" whispered one council member. "They've always been this," Zura replied softly. "We simply never pushed them far enough to see it." The truth was undeniable. Humanity, with all its diplomacy and trade, had always been forged in war. They had only chosen not to show it, until that choice was taken away. On the Zorath homeworld, Warlord Varrock sat in disbelief as report after report arrived. Every defensive line, every fortress, every bastion was falling. His forces were being crushed, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "We underestimated them," he muttered, his voice breaking. "We thought they were weak. We were wrong." Within days, the once mighty Dominion lay in ruins. Their fleets annihilated, their planets occupied or reduced to rubble, their leadership dead, captured, or in hiding. The unstoppable force they had claimed to be was gone, shattered beyond recovery. The galaxy fell into stunned silence. Humanity, once seen as minor actors on the galactic stage, had revealed themselves as something far greater, something terrifying. In the war rooms on Earth, General Alden studied the final reports. The last Zorath strongholds had been destroyed. No resistance remained. "It's over," Alden said quietly. "They're finished. They will never recover." Around the table, commanders nodded grimly. The Zorath threat had been erased. But now, new questions loomed. What would come next? How would the galaxy respond to humanity's new position of power? For centuries, humanity had played the quiet member of the Federation, trading, negotiating, and keeping the peace. But after this, there was no hiding. The galaxy had seen what they were truly capable of. Admiral Saren entered the chamber, his face calm but serious. He had overseen much of the fleet's campaign, orchestrating the strikes that dismantled the Zorath war machine. His gaze met Alden's, and in silence they understood the weight of what had been unleashed. "The Federation is already reacting," Saren said. "Some are cautious, others are terrified. They don't know what to make of us now." Alden exhaled slowly. "They saw what we did. They know what we're capable of." "And that frightens them," Saren agreed. "We stayed silent for too long. Now they see us for what we are, the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Some species would seek alliances. Others would see humanity as a threat. Either way, the balance of power had shifted forever. Back at the Federation Council, debate raged. Should humanity be praised for destroying a rising danger, or feared for their overwhelming strength? Ambassador Zura, once humanity's fiercest critic, found herself without words. "They're gods of war," she whispered. "They've been dormant too long, but they're still gods." Her words echoed the unspoken fear across the galaxy. On Earth, General Alden stood before the stars, his reflection on the glass. He knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be fear, distrust, perhaps even new enemies. But one thing was certain: humanity would never again be underestimated.